The triple murder at UVA is just one of many shootings at colleges across America. As the crime crisis gets worse, let's bring in former acting U.S. Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Matt, it's always great to see you. I caught something in Laura's piece there because we've been talking about this a lot across the country, and it often happens. You see where the UVA police knew about this suspect. I mean, they were warned about him, and like so many times, nothing happened.
Yeah, this is such a tragedy, and my heart breaks, for these families of these talented young men. And obviously, the police, we're going to have to sort together what the police and the family knew about this individual, and whether or not with that information they did everything that was necessary. We continue to look at these situations, and oftentimes, there are key indicators that would lead people to believe that something bad is about to happen. And in this case, we don't know enough yet, but I'm guessing that there were some signs, that if the dots were connected, we need to get better at doing that, quite frankly.
And that's what I say is, do you wonder why? Because they knew he had a gun. People said he had a gun. And yet, wouldn't you think the campus police would at least just knock on the door and say, listen, what's going on? Do you need some help? Are you looking at something? I'm not saying they should violate his rights. I'm just saying that maybe a check wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, and these protocols, like you describe, are just something that needs to continue to improve. These situations are happening too frequently in our country. This culture of death and violence, especially among our young people. I think we need to find ways to deal with it, in addition to making sure the police have all the tools they can possibly have in order to accomplish less victims of violent crime in America.
We were talking about President Biden meeting with Chinese President Xi, and apparently the subject of fentanyl never came up. We know China is kind of throwing this stuff, the chemicals, into Mexico. The cartels are whipping it up and sending it across the border. I want to put up this New York Post headline that says a man busted with 20,000 fentanyl pills set free from police sources. 20,000 fentanyl pills. If he had 20,000 guns, he'd still be in prison. The fentanyl pills could be every bit, maybe more dangerous, and yet he's back on the streets. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we've had over 70,000 people die of fentanyl overdose in the last year. And there's really two issues going on here. First, there's the international situation with the Chinese precursors going to Mexico and then being pressed into fentanyl that is pouring across our border because of the lack of security there. And then couple that with, the cartels owning the border. And, I know that President Trump, when he met with Xi back in 2018, they talked about fentanyl. I went to China as chief of staff, met with senior Chinese officials. Fentanyl was #1 on my list. It's really a shame that this administration isn't addressing this issue with both China and the Mexican government.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about, back in 2020, how the administration, the Trump administration, the Biden administration handled different protests for George Floyd versus COVID lockdowns, and how some medical organizations said, yeah, it's fine to go out and protest for racial justice. It's not fine to go out and protest for COVID. This is the chief of speechwriting for Education Secretary Miguel Cardonas, who was mocking oppression voiced by white protesters. She said the following, quoting here, yes, that feeling of oppression these white protesters have voiced is the residual effect of living in a country that has been shaped to cater to their racial majority status and consequently their perceived loss of power and privilege. What do you think of that?
Well, it's utter nonsense, Trace. Let's be honest. One of the root foundations and the constitutional principles is our ability to speak out against our government in
Right.
peaceful protesting. And if we disagree with what it does, whether or not you have some privilege or not, I don't think that's even legitimate in this. It's really the whole political discussion where the left tries to invalidate certain voices that they disagree with under the guise of privilege or race. I just think, it cheapens political debate, and, we need to continue, and never mind that some of the protests in the summer of 2020 were violent. Buildings
Very
were burned, courthouses were attacked, and, we have to always speak out against political violence, and I think that's oftentimes the left doesn't when it helps their cause.
Yeah, dozens were killed. Federal buildings were attacked and held for days and weeks. And some of those who were killed were police officers. And a lot of the people who, may or may not have been responsible for those crimes were back on the streets very quickly with the help of the administration. Matt Whitaker, it's always great to see you. Thank you for coming on, sir.
All right. Thanks, Trace. Good seeing you tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.